Welcome to the USA Staffing Training for Hiring Managers and Proxies. Thank you for joining us today. We're excited to have this time with you to discuss hiring and recruiting, including specifics on HRConnect Power Recruiting and our new applicant tracking system, USA Staffing. Our objectives for today are to give a high-level overview of the end-to-end recruitment and hiring process for the Department of Commerce, review the classification process and give a live demonstration of submitting a classification request, review the recruitment process and share a brief video on HRConnect Power Recruiting, give a live demonstration of submitting a recruitment request, walk through how to use the USA Staffing platform for reviewing and approving job opportunity announcements, or JOAs, and certificates, review the hiring and onboarding process and share a video overview of the JOA and certificate reviews, and final reminders. First, we will start with an overview of the end-to-end recruitment and hiring model. As I mentioned earlier, Enterprise Services is now using a new applicant tracking system, USA Staffing. With this new system, we're striving to provide candidates and hiring managers with a positive and improved experience through the implementation of new talent acquisition and onboarding systems, to improve visibility into the end-to-end hiring process for hiring managers and candidates, and accelerate the time to hire, including onboarding of the candidate through standard, consistent processes and advanced technology. The first phase in the end-to-end recruitment and hiring process is classification, when job descriptions are created. The next phase is recruitment, when the hiring manager uses the JOA posting to connect with candidates to support the department's hiring and talent needs. The final phase is hiring and onboarding, when eligible, qualified applicants are placed on a certificate of eligibles for selection, and final selectees are onboarded into the department and their respective bureaus. As we take a closer look at the end-to-end process of recruiting and hiring, there are some key differences across the processes that we'd like to highlight. Recruitments are ongoing targeted efforts to identify qualified and diverse candidates that meet skills necessary for a given field. Hiring, however, is the process of selecting and appointing a job applicant through the open announcement at the given point in time. Hiring only begins at the point of employment. While recruitment and hiring are distinct, they work hand in hand to complete the end-to-end processes for identifying and onboarding unique talent. Now that we have a better understanding of the differences between recruiting and hiring, let's discuss the responsibilities of the hiring manager or proxy in the recruiting and hiring model. This slide shows the recruiting and hiring model flow. After classification activities, the recruitment phase begins at step 5 with submitting a power recruiting request in HRConnect. Then the hiring and onboarding phase begins at step 9 with scheduling and conducting interviews. Now that we have discussed the general process flow, let's review each phase in a little more depth. On this timeline, hiring managers and proxies are responsible for the steps in blue, while Enterprise Services is responsible for the steps in orange. The hiring and recruiting phase begins with classification. For classification, you'll first need to identify the job type. If the job is a GS or FWS position, you will need to determine if there is a draft or existing position description available. If there is no existing PD, you will submit a request for a new classification via the Enterprise Services portal. If the job type is CAPS, the PD will be classified in ACS prior to submitting the classification request. Once that is determined, you will submit the classification request in the Enterprise Services portal. ES will then coordinate the classification alignment conversation if necessary and classify the GS or FWS PD. Next, you will coordinate with Enterprise Services to review and approve the PD. Using the approved PD, you will then use the Position Description Automated Tool, or PDT, to create the Position Designation Record, or PDR. The PDR identifies the position's designation and its corresponding level of required investigation based on sensitivity and risk levels. After ES builds a job code, signs the CD516, packages the request and all documents into a fully classified PD package in the portal, the recruitment phase begins. The first step of the recruitment phase is submission of the Power Recruiting request in HRConnect. You will then submit a recruitment request in the Enterprise Services portal. Please note that a budget approval is needed internally prior to submitting this request. After ES coordinates the strategic conversation with the hiring manager, they will then develop the job analysis, or JA, and assessments. You will then review and approve the prepared JA. After your JA approval, Enterprise Services will review and approve the recruitment package, clear the Reemployment Priority List, or RPL, which is the list of anyone that is being displaced, develop the Job Opportunity Announcement, or JOA, and configure all assessments. Again, you will need to review and approve the JOA via USA Staffing. This is your final responsibility in the recruitment phase. Finally, ES will do one more review of the JOA for quality control. They will also post and close the JOA, review applications for eligibility, conduct minimum qualifications review, and develop the certificate of eligibles. Now, hiring and onboarding begins. Once you receive an automated notification via USA Staffing that the certificate is ready for review, you will start the hiring and onboarding process by accessing and reviewing the certificate of eligibles on USA Staffing. Next, you'll schedule and conduct interviews. After interviews, you will annotate and return the certificate of eligibles in USA Staffing with your selection. The ES team will review the annotated certificate and extend the tentative job offer, or TJO, to the selectee. You will receive a notification when the TJO has been extended. If the applicant requests negotiation, you will be notified and will then need to coordinate negotiation approval within your bureau. ES will then initiate the security process with the Office of Security, or OSY, and extend the final job offer, or the FJO. You will also be notified once the FJO has been extended. This is your final involvement in the hiring and onboarding phase. ES will coordinate a start date with the hiring manager or losing agency as applicable, and then conduct a department-wide orientation, which includes I-9 verification. The hiring and onboarding phase concludes when the Bureau conducts its specific orientation with the new hire. Now that we have discussed the flow of the recruitment and hiring model, we will summarize the activities specific to you as the hiring managers or proxies. Let's begin with the classification phase. Your key activities in classification are to determine the type of classification needed, determine if a draft or existing PD is available, submit a classification request in the Enterprise Services portal, review and approve the PD that ES prepares for you, and use the PDT to populate the PDR. Here, you'll see a list of the required and optional case documents for the recruitment and hiring process. The first three documents make up what we refer to as the PD package. Now, we'll show you how to initiate a classification request on the Enterprise Services portal.
We are now in the Enterprise Services portal. If you're experiencing any issues logging into the portal, please check that you're connected to the Department of Commerce VPN and that you're using Google Chrome to access our platform. As we mentioned before, we'll be showing the process of how to navigate to and complete the service request for initiating a classification in the portal. For more context, will require a classified PD at the start of the recruitment request. So we'll get started with that scenario first. Right now, I'm here on the homepage of the portal. From here, I'll select Request Services to navigate to the service catalog. Here, I can immediately see my most popular service requests. These are the service requests that I've used most frequently in the past. Under the Catalogs dropdown on the left, select Talent Acquisition. I will then select the Submit Classification tile, which will take me to the service request page. Alternatively, I can use our universal search bar from our homepage to navigate to this request page. On the service request page, there is a short description that shows us we're in the right place. This is the page for submitting the recruitment or non-recruitment actions. This page also details what this request means. If you have a classified PD package already, and therefore do not need to submit a classification request, this link will take you to the hiring recruitment request form. For this example, we're going to proceed with a submit classification request. If I scroll down a little bit, I can see I am requesting this service as a ... which allows me to change my role. Right here, I will select Manager. If I were acting as a proxy on behalf of a different hiring manager, I could use the drop-down menu to indicate that I'm an employee. Then I would indicate the manager who I'm submitting this on behalf of in the next drop-down. But for this demonstration, I'll act as myself, a hiring manager. I'll then proceed to select the classification action type. With the transition of talent acquisition services to enterprise services, ES will take on classification for recruitment actions and non-recruitment actions. I do want to take a moment to explain what this process might look like if you selected non-recruit actions in this field. If you were to select the non-recruit actions, the options in the next fields dropdown would be slightly different, as you can see here. For this walkthrough, however, I'll select Recruit Actions in the Classification Action Type field. In classification, since I did select Recruit Actions, I'm seeing Backfill, New or Modified Position, or PMF as my classification options. For today, I'll select a brand new position which requires classification, but you do have the option to use the other two. In the next field, identify if the position is an Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Action, DOC Mission Critical Priority, or American Rescue Plan Act position. If it is none of the above, select Not Applicable. Since I selected New or Modified Position, I'm not expected to have a job code or the IP number from HRConnect, so these are optional fields. If these were backfills and you did happen to have the job code and individual position number from HRConnect on hand, it's best practice to enter that information in these fields. In the next field, specify when you would like this action to be effective. Make sure you input the effective date for the classification here. I'll use our calendar menu to choose Monday, October 17th, just for the demonstration. As a reminder, this is the date the classification is effective. If the classification is for a recruitment action, you will have the option to enter the expected hire date when you're submitting the recruitment request in the portal. You're also going to designate the pay plan applicable to your classification. We have GS, FWS, and CAPS pay plans. For today, I'll select General Schedule. A quick CAPS note, if you were to submit a CAPS classification request, you must upload the Automated Classification System, or ACS, position description, as managers will retain the classification authority for CAPS. This is in addition to the Position Designation Record, or PDR, and Draft CD 516. We also give you the opportunity to provide any additional details or information relating to this classification request. This field is available to enter anything you'd like the classifier to consider when reviewing your action. For today, we will enter NA. On the bottom right, I'll attach the required documentation for my classification request, including a PDR and CD516 in the portal. For a CAPS classification, I'd also attach the ACS PD. If you had an org chart or other helpful documents which would allow for the classifier to better process your request, you would also attach those here. Lastly, we have our standard checkbox for you to confirm you've completed and attached the required documents. Please note there may be a delay in processing the request if you do not attach the appropriate documentation. Once I have reviewed the request and confirmed I filled out to the best of my ability, I will check this box. Finally, select Submit to complete the classification request. Enterprise Services will then move forward with your request. Now that I have submitted my classification request as a manager, I'm presented with the My Request page. You can return to this page to view your case by selecting Tickets in the top right corner and then selecting the applicable case title. Now, I will exit the portal and we will discuss the next step of the recruitment and hiring process.
The next step is recruitment. Let's discuss your key activities during the recruitment phase. You will submit a Power Recruiting request in HRConnect, submit a recruitment request in the ES portal, review and approve the job analysis or JA prepared by ES, and review and approve the job opportunity announcement in USA Staffing. Now, let's look closer at the HR Power Recruiting request process. You will navigate to the Power Recruiting wizard to submit recruitment actions for standard recruitments, special appointment authorities and direct hires, and pathways or student appointments. As a reminder, if you begin a Power Recruiting case, you must complete the entire process at once. The HRConnect system does not save information. This slide shows the screen differences between the manager versus proxy views. Hiring managers will initiate a recruiting request by navigating to the My Team tile on the HRC landing page. Proxies, however, will select the Proxy Actions tile from the main landing page of HRConnect. Then, the proxy will select the people and positions of the appropriate manager for whom they are submitting the recruitment package. Once in My Teams or the Proxy Actions, in the case of proxies, select the vacant positions. On the Vacant Positions page, you'll select a vacant position to be filled, or you will establish a new position. For purposes of this demonstration, we will assume that a vacant position exists. Next, you'll review the vacant positions listed on the page to identify the one that you would like to fill. Once the vacant position has been selected, review the duties outlined for the position. Once you have reviewed and verified this, select To Power Recruiting to initiate the Power Recruiting steps. On the first page of the Power Recruiting wizard, underneath Choose Advertising area, you'll choose how the vacancy position should be posted to reach eligible candidates. You'll see options to keep it within the division, inside your department or agency, or with your specific bureau. You can also advertise across the entire federal government or even open it to the public. Then you'll be a local or nationwide in the commuting areas section. You'll also have the option to choose the advertising duration. This can be normal or extended. Please note that the standard period is usually 7 calendar days or 10 calendar days if the position is covered under the bargaining unit, but this will depend on the position that you're advertising. You will also select the appointment, whether it's regular or a temporary appointment. If the position is temporary, you'll define the length of that temporary appointment. You'll then identify the work schedule and denote if this is shift work. Next, you'll have the option to indicate if the position is telework eligible. Important note, this does not indicate whether approval or disapproval to telework is given only that the position is eligible for telework. You then will indicate whether the moving expenses will be paid or unpaid for this position. Finally, the wizard will instruct you to check a box near the bottom of the page if the position involves travel. If yes, you'll identify the number of nights that the employee would need to travel per month. After verifying the information on the first page is correct and the attachments have been added, you can proceed to the next page by selecting Next. On this second page of the wizard, you'll verify that the series for the recruitment present is correct, and/or you'll enter the occupational series you would like the position to be advertised for. You can use the pencil icon near the right of the table to add in a row to enter additional occupational series. The trash icon next to it will delete a row in the same way. Remember to document the multiple series in your recruitment case documentation. Next, you'll proceed to the next page in the module. On the third page, you'll identify the grade levels at which you'd like to advertise your position, and most importantly, identify and validate the full performance level, or FPL, for the position. This should be supported by your recruitment case documentation. All grades you select will apply to each of the occupational series you selected in the previous page of the wizard. You'll then use the drop-down menu to select the target grade or full performance level. This is the highest achievable grade for this position. There are 3 things to remember in the case of a career ladder position. You should select the highest possible grade, FPL. Each grade will need its own classified PD package, and the employee hired can non-competitively be promoted to a higher grade once hired. Now you'll proceed to the next page. The fourth page of the wizard will ask you to detail the posting sources for the position. This can be USA Jobs, newspaper, trade journals, internet sites, and so on. Keep in mind, the Enterprise Services Staffing Specialist is only responsible for the USA Jobs vacancy posting. Other sources will be the responsibility of your office or bureau. Once this page has been reviewed and the advertising sources indicated, you'll proceed to the next page. On this page of the wizard, you'll indicate where the job is physically located. Select the country and state using the drop-down menus next to their respective fields. Then, use the magnifying glass icon next to the city field to search for the locality within the state. By selecting the pencil in the top right corner of the Choose Your Location module, you can add multiple locations. If the location is negotiable, leave this blank and you can enter into the comments section in step 9. Specify the number of openings for this position. There is no restriction on the number of openings per location. The work location description and selecting official fields should auto-populate based on the information you entered previously and your employee ID, respectively. Your name will also auto-populate next to the selecting official field once your employee ID is entered. With that, we can move on to the next page. Here you will have the opportunity to describe the unique qualities of this position that should be noted to attract the talent that you're looking for. What will make your position attractive to a potential employee? Examples of content you may include here can be whether this position offers school reimbursements or bonuses. This information will appear in the Help Wanted, so it may be helpful to interpret this section as the why component of your position advertisement. Please note, this text box should not be used to display the information about the agency. Proceed to the next step. On the 7th page of the wizard, you'll be able to specify the qualities you're searching for and how you'll define a strong candidate. Please keep in mind, candidates for this position will be evaluated against the factors you select during the recruitment process. No competencies have yet been established at this point in the process. That will happen in step 8. Once this page has been reviewed, you'll proceed to the next step. In Step 8 of the Power Recruiting Wizard, you'll have the opportunity to list specific qualifications an applicant must have to be considered for the position. For example, items such as specialized experience, selective placement factors, licensing and credentialing requirements, language requirements, etc. should be entered in this text box. After outlining the qualifications for the position, please enter all those who you would like to be notified of the recruit request. In the email notification field, enter their email addresses and remember to separate multiple recipients with a comma. In our second to last portion of the Power Recruiting Wizard, the hiring manager or proxy will have the option to send this recruit request to the report output page of HRConnect. As a best practice, we recommend selecting yes to have the Power Recruiting request added to your report output page. If you do select yes, HRConnect will generate a PDF of the recruiting request after you submit it, which you can find in the Reports tile from your homepage. You will then specify if this request is for a backfill. Backfill can also be selected if you are hiring for a position that is still encumbered by an employee that has given notice, for which you would like to begin recruitment. Once noted, please include the position number in the comments instructions section, along with individuals who will be involved in the hiring process, the email and phone number of the hiring manager, and any other comments associated with the recruitment case. These comments are for the staffing specialist. Next, you'll select the appropriate authorizer to whom you should route the Power Recruiting request. Please remember that at least one level of authorization is required for all requests before going to Enterprise Services Staffing Specialist. The first authorizer is the next level supervisor of the submitter. The second authorizer is that next level of supervisor to that first authorizer. Third authorizer is automatically routed to Enterprise Services. Finally, validate that all the information you've entered on this page and previous pages is accurate. Once validated, you'll select Submit. Once you've submitted your request in Step 9, you'll see a pop-up message which includes the 6-digit Power Recruiting request number. Please make sure to record and keep this number on hand. Select OK to confirm. You have now completed the HRConnect portion of your recruit request. Your Enterprise Services Staffing Specialist will contact you once they have received your request. Next, we will watch a video on how to initiate a recruitment action in HRConnect.
Welcome to Power Recruiting, an EBS Training Solutions video. This video will demonstrate how to initiate a recruitment action and start the process of posting a vacancy announcement. Let's get started. Navigate to the My Team page. Select the Vacant Positions icon or link. Select the appropriate vacant position. Select the To Power Recruiting button. Complete page 1 as necessary. And select the Next button. Add additional series if necessary. Then select the Next button. Select the grade or grades you wish to recruit for, the target grade. And then select the Next button. Enter the appropriate information. And select the Next button. Select the country, if necessary, state, city, and number of openings. Change the selecting official, if necessary. Then select the Next button. Enter necessary information. And select the Next button to proceed. Select the Next button. Enter specialized experience and email addresses, if appropriate. Then select the Next button. Enter comments, if necessary. Choose the next appropriate approver. Select the Submit button and OK button to finish the process. You can find additional information in the instructions and FAQ portions of this job aid. Thank you for watching.
Now that we have reviewed how to submit a Power Recruiting request, we will demonstrate how to initiate a recruitment request in the Enterprise Services portal.
Now that I have the Enterprise Services homepage pulled up, I will show the process of how you will submit the recruitment request in the portal. Each time you log into the portal, remember to verify that you are connected to the Department of Commerce VPN and use Google Chrome to access our platform. Please note that the hiring manager or their proxy should only initiate the recruitment request in the Enterprise Services portal after they have initiated the classification request in the portal and submitted the Power Recruiting request in HRConnect, or after they already have a classified PD package. Once the Power Recruiting request has received the appropriate levels of authorization, you will be asked to submit a recruitment request in the portal. This will be the last step in the initiation of your recruitment request process. Now, to submit a recruitment request, you'll navigate to the portal homepage and select Request Services in the service bar here. In our service catalog, you can scroll down a bit through My Categories to find and select Talent Acquisition. Then you will select the Submit Hiring Recruitment Request tile here. Like the classification request form, we have a short description confirming we are in the right place. If you don't have the classification package ready, there is a link for you to go to the Submit Classification Request page in this overview. Further down, you have the option to request this service as a manager, or if you're a proxy for another hiring manager, you can select their name in the drop-down menu. Then you will be required to select the recruitment action type. Here, you'll designate whether this is for a backfill, new position, or for a public notice flyer. You'll also be able to select whether the recruitments for backfills and new positions are competitive versus non-competitive. We'll go ahead and recruit for a new competitive position that we have just classified. For the recruitment identification, you'll indicate whether this recruitment is tied to the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, American Rescue Plan Act, or DOC Mission Critical Priority. If none of these are applicable, you'll select Not Applicable. Since this is a new position, the individual position number is not required. If this were for a backfill, we would expect this field to be completed. If you have the expected start date, please enter it. If you don't know this information, that's all right. This is an optional field, and Enterprise Services is aware this date may change based on the recruitment process. Now, the hiring manager will enter in the HRC recruitment request number. When you initiated the Power Recruit request in HRConnect, you were presented with a 6-digit recruit request number. We ask that you take note of this number so that when you submit this request in the portal, you can document it here. The recruit request number lets the HR specialist reviewing the request to find and track the Power Recruit request in HRConnect and make sure it's routed through the necessary levels of authorization. Again, for the sake of example, I'll enter in a 6-digit sample number for us to continue. Next, you will enter in the job code, which you will have received in the classified PD package. From the classified PD package, the hiring manager should retain the job code number and enter it here. In this scenario, we have just received our classified PD package, and we would use the HRC job code provided by the classifier in the previous step. I'm going to enter in a test job code for us to continue forward. We also ask that you indicate in the checkbox here, confirming that budget approval has been received. In the next field, use the drop-down to enter in the hiring manager who should be associated with the recruit request. If you are a hiring manager submitting this request, then you can search for yourself. For proxies, you would select the manager for whom you are entering this request. We'll enter in a test hiring manager for the sake of this training. You'll notice that the position title field is grayed out. This is because the hiring manager's position title will auto-populate based on the information you've entered in previously. We then ask that you enter the hiring manager's contact phone number. For the sake of example, let's enter a sample number here. You'll then enter the human capital business partner. This can be the HR liaison, but this field is optional as we understand there may not always be involvement from Bureau HR or other Bureau representatives. For the sake of demonstration, I'll enter in another test user. The contact email address field will auto-populate with the email address associated with that user in the portal. In the next field, you will select the appropriate line office from the drop-down menu. Then you have the option to provide any additional comments, details, or information which may be helpful for the specialist reviewing the request. You'll then validate that you've completed and attached any required documents. For example, if the recruitment is for a non-competitive action, you would also be required to upload a resume here. Finally, select Submit to finalize your request. Once your request has been received, you will be notified that a ticket has been opened for you. After selecting Submit, you're taken to the My Request page, where you can confirm the details you submitted. Just like the classification request, you can return to this page to view your case by selecting Tickets in the top right corner, and then selecting the applicable case title. Now, I will exit the portal and we will discuss USA staffing and how to review draft JOAs.
Before we walk through the JOA review process, we want to share how to access USA Staffing from the Enterprise Services portal. From the portal homepage, select Human Resources on the top left of the page. A drop-down will open. Below Quick Links, select USA Staffing by that lower yellow arrow. Once you log in, see the Hiring Manager dashboard, shown here. From this page, you can view hiring actions as well as search for any specific requests. Again, here is the Hiring Manager dashboard. You'll see there are different review types that can be assigned to you, including the Job Opportunity Announcement or JOA review that we're about to discuss. Now let's walk through the JOA review process. Once the Enterprise Services Staffing Specialist assigned to your case completes the JOA and it is submitted in USA Staffing, you will receive an email notifying you it is complete and ready for review. To navigate to USA Staffing to review the JOA, you may either select the link sent in the email, which will bring you directly to the JOA for review, or log into the USA Staffing system. When logging into the system, you'll then have to navigate to the Assignments tile on the Hiring Manager dashboard, where you can see the review type that you have been assigned. In this scenario, you've been assigned a JOA review. Select the job title to review. A pop-up will appear with instructions and considerations to keep in mind when reviewing the JOA. After you have cleared the pop-up, the actual JOA will open for your review. You will have the opportunity to view the instructions again, review any attached documents, and read or add any notes to the job opportunity announcement. Once you have completed your review, including any documents and notes, select the Approval Statuses drop-down menu. Here, you will be able to indicate if the JOA is incomplete, approved, approved pending changes, or in some cases, rejected. For purpose of today's demonstration, we will select approved. once the approval status is selected, a pop-up message will appear. If your review is complete, select Return to HR or Cancel to remain on the JOA's page. Note that Cancel will only cancel the current task, not the entire record. If no additional changes are needed, select Return to HR to see your updated Manager dashboard. This slide demonstrates that the system has refreshed and returned you to your Hiring Manager dashboard with an updated status. Now, key activities in the hiring and onboarding phase. As the hiring manager, your key activities in hiring and onboarding include accessing and reviewing the Certificate of Eligibles in USA Staffing, scheduling and conducting interviews via email or phone, annotating and returning the Certificate of Eligibles in USA Staffing, coordinating negotiation approval within your bureau as necessary. Once all levels of applicant review are completed by your staffing specialist, you will receive an email review notification that the certificate is ready for review. To open an applicant list review, you can select the URL from that review notification email or log into USA Staffing and select the title of the position for review from the Assignments page. When you open a review for the first time, the instructions that Enterprise Services entered will be visible as shown here. If you have closed the instructions and need to refer to them again, you can always select View Instructions. You may use the View Announcement tab to open a copy of the announcement in a new browser window. The Documents and Notes tabs may also be helpful for referencing additional information or documentation during your review. Documents and notes you add and save will be viewable by the HR specialist and other reviewers and will become part of the case file. To review the certificate ES has prepared, select the corresponding certificate number and select the review lists. When you are ready to select an applicant, select the Make Selections button to the left of the selectee's name. To document a selection decision for an individual applicant, choose the drop-down in the Selection Decision box. Choose the appropriate selection decision: Selected, Alternate Selection, Not Selected, from the drop-down menu. As a best practice, include your alternate selection or selections in case your first selectee declines. To document an alternate selection decision for an individual applicant, ensure you include the selection order, for example, 1, 2, and so on. Select the hiring action number. Note, there is an option to designate more than one alternate in order of preference if you choose to do so. Enterprise Services will document any declinations or withdrawals. Once your selection steps are complete, choose Save. Once your selection is saved, the system will ask you if you would like to begin the onboarding process. If you have additional selections to make, you'll see a notification that HR has been notified of your selection or selections. On the applicant list screen, you will select the approval status in the bottom right-hand corner and select Next. The following message appears and you will select Return to HR. Once selection decisions for all certificates are documented, select the Back to Assignments button located on the bottom right corner of the page. The status for each completed certificate assignment will be shown in green. If any certificates show an incomplete status in red text, this indicates the approval status is not yet complete. When all certificate assignments are complete, and if your permissions allow, select Return to HR to return the review. If you do not see this option, you are finished when all the statuses are complete. You will then see a pop-up box that says, All review assignments are complete. The review is ready to be returned to HR. Selecting Return to HR will send the review back to Enterprise Services, and it will no longer be available for you or any other reviewers to make comments. When the review is returned, you will be invited to complete a survey about your experience with the hiring action. This survey is voluntary and confidential, but we highly encourage you to take a few minutes to complete it. The results are used by OPM and by each agency to make changes to the hiring process that will increase hiring manager satisfaction and improve the quality and timeliness of the applicants referred. Now, we'll share a video overview of the USA Staffing JOA and certificate review processes. Please note, the demonstration contains an older version of the hiring manager dashboard, but all process steps are the same.
So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to the hiring manager side to show you what they would see when they receive a certificate review. So when I send the review, that a hiring manager will be notified via email, letting them know that, hey, HR user so-and-so sent you a review for so-and-so. And they will know that they can click on the link within that email to log into USA Staffing and be able to take action on that review. When they first log into USA Staffing, if they click the review link, they will be taken straight into that review. But if they just log in without following that link, if they bookmark the page, for example, this will be the first page they see. This is the hiring manager dashboard. And this dashboard is where we have a variety of different information included as a glance for hiring managers. Things like, okay, which reviews have you not completed yet? Which one have you completed? Which hiring actions did you make? Which selections did you indicate? And where are they at in the process? And which request did you submit? We call those hiring actions. So for reviews, this is where I can locate my certificate review that I sent earlier. This is also where I can see a JOA review. So that JOA review that I had sent over earlier, this is where this is located. The instructions that are populated are shown here when I first log in. And I can go through each section of the review to indicate whether or not I'm okay with the questions that were going to be included in my assessment questionnaire. If I approve them without changes, I just change this approval status to approved and click next, and it opens up the next section for me. Here I have the announcement text, and I can recommend edits, and it works a little bit like track changes. As I'm typing, any information that I type is in green. And if I hover over it, it'll tell me who added it and when. If I have multiple reviewers reviewing a JOA, each one of them will get a different color. And this information is viewable by the HR user when that review has been returned. So once they've completed all of the review assignments, they all have a little green check mark. They can return that review to HR, and HR can take appropriate action. This JOA review feature comes in handy if you have a process by which your hiring managers get to say whether or not they're happy with the announcement before that announcement is released to USA Jobs. The other type of review that I want to take a look at is the certificate review. So this is, again, for that announcement we were just looking at. That was the 9/11 that had certificates that had been issued for both of those grade levels. I can see the 9 certificates and review both of them at the same time if I choose to. Maybe one of them is merit promotion, one of them is delegated examining, whatever the case may be. And within a certificate, I have the option to, let me zoom in just a little bit, see the information for an individual applicant, contact information, preferences, their answers to eligibility questions or assessments, see their category rating, their scores, their veterans preference. All of these things are things that can be toggled on or off based on the HR user and their preferences for what information do they want the hiring manager to display or to see on their side. The part that's important is this one right here, where they annotate their selection decision. So if they select an individual, then at that point they have the option to indicate, okay, which request number do we want to select them against, what duty location, what PD number, if there's multiple PDs for that grade level. So that information can all be captured up front, or they can leave some of these information blank if they don't necessarily know the request number that they want to associate to select the they can go ahead and leave that blank and HR can fill it out on their end. They have the option of seeing documents for each applicant, adding in their own notes. And just like HR had the option to toggle things, the hiring manager has the option to do so as well. They can print the certificate. They can print the applicant documents. So if they select all of the applicants, for example, they can choose to print their documents all at one time. So we call this batch printing, where all of the documents get compiled into a single PDF that they can review at their leisure without having to stay logged into USA Staffing the entire time. They can choose to make selection decisions individually, or they can mass apply decisions. So if they wanted to say, okay, I've selected Sadie, and everybody else is not selected, I can choose all of them at the same time and say, yep, everybody else is not selected. And why? Just because they're not selected. No other specific reason necessarily needs to be provided. They do have a couple of other options in here, selected on a different certificate or not selecting pending passover, but they don't necessarily need to be used if they're not appropriate. We do have other options under declined and withdrawn as well, where you can indicate, why somebody needs to be removed from consideration because they declined the location or they failed to respond to an interview request, whatever the case may be. And we have, in addition to selected, the option to select alternates to indicate that if the primary selectee declines or otherwise fails to complete the onboarding process, you have some backups in place, basically, to offer the job to the next person in line without having to go back to the hiring manager to say, okay, sorry, they didn't make it, now who's next? So by using that alternate selection audit code, it's basically a way to indicate that you have some backups lined up in case the first person doesn't work out. So each one of these audit codes is documented on the certificate and is available to be viewed live on the HR side by the HR user looking at the certificate. Once the selecting official has completed their review, they can indicate whether or not they made a selection from this certificate and move on to returning that certificate back to the HR office. So once they have the status of selection made or not made for each of the certificates, they can return that to HR. So that's where HR takes over. They can complete the certificate audit. I'm going to put my HR user hat back.
To wrap up our session, we're going to do a quick review of next steps once the applicants have been selected. As a best practice, an alternate selection should be identified. Additionally, if the position is a Commerce Alternative Personnel System or CAPS position, a salary memo must be provided. Now that the applicant selections have been made and the certificates are complete, a tentative job offer or TJO will be extended to the selectee. If the applicant accepts the position, the security process will begin with the Office of Security, known as OSY. If any incentives are utilized, they must be approved and allocated at the time of the final job offer or FJO. Once an entrance on duty or EOD date is identified, this is also called a start date, and the candidate meets security and suitability, the FJO will be extended to the candidate along with any additional onboarding forms and pre-employment activities. Thank you all for joining us today. For USA Staffing account access, please submit an account management request for the Bureau TA Hiring Manager persona on the Enterprise Services portal. For any other questions, please contact Enterprise Services Program at doc.gov. Thank you.